So our next presenter is Keith Jenkins. He's going to be talking about building GIS skills whenever you're ready.
Okay, do you see the blue screen?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Looks great.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for coming out to Geo for Lib Camp. My name is Keith Jenkins, and I am the GIS librarian at Cornell University. And I'm going to talk to you today about how you can develop new mapping skills in just 10 minutes a day. That's right, in just 10 minutes a day. Of course, I'm talking about the 30-day map challenge. This is an event that's now in its third year. For the 30 days of November, each day has a different theme, and your goal is to make a map and then post that to Twitter. So my goal this time around was to do all 30 days, learn something new, hopefully each day. So the theme for the first day was points, so I decided, why don't I map the points of Eastern Finger Lakes? So the theme for the second day was lines, and so I thought I'd try the same trick. I decided just to map places called state line. And as you can imagine, they tend to fall on state lines. Someone responded to my post and said, do town line next. And so I did. And interestingly, day 3 was polygons. And so I decided, well, what's the most boring polygon that exists? It's a rectangle. In fact, a grid of rectangles. So I decided to zoom into the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas. The theme for day 4 was hexagons, which reminded me of the song All My Hexes Live in Texas. Day 5 was a data challenge to use data from OpenStreetMap, but getting the whole Appalachian Trail was a bit of a challenge. The theme for day 6 was red, and so I thought of the phrase seeing red when you're angry. So this is a view shed highlighted in red from Angry Mountain, looking towards Mount Rainier. The theme for day 7 was green, and I thought of my old Apple II Plus computer, which had a monochrome green monitor. So last year I had been working on a emulator in JavaScript that would simulate an Apple II Plus. So what I did here is I actually created a map in QGIS. I added that Greenland title in a pixel font using Microsoft Paint, and then loaded this image into my emulator. The theme for day 8 was blue, and I decided to invert elevation. So what you're actually looking at here is Europe, and everything that's water is now land, and everything that's land is water. So the theme for day 9 was monochrome. So I created another map in QGIS, added the north arrow there, added some pixel art in Microsoft Paint, loaded that into the emulator, but then I had to figure out how I could get it onto the Apple II Plus by turning it into an audio that I could then load in through the cassette port. The theme for day 10 was raster, so I took two raster datasets, the National Land Cover dataset, and I extruded it by elevation raster. This is the area around the Saranac Lake. The theme for day 11 was 3D, and so this is a recycling of an idea from a few days earlier where I inverted the elevation. And so what you're seeing are those ridges, or actually gorges in Ithaca, that go down to the town, and then the lake itself is upon the top of this high plateau. The theme for day 12 was population. This took a fair amount of work to wrangle the data from the agricultural census due to the way they had aggregated the data for each county. Day 13 was a data challenge where we were to use data from natural earth, so that is what the base map is here. And I took inspiration from Kurt Menke, who made a map of his own personal minimum bounding box. So to do this, I learned about creating great circles rather than just straight lines. The instructions for day 14 were to map with a new tool, an HTML table containing Stamen watercolor tiles, and then I applied a simple CSS style effects to add the frame and also to rotate one of the cells. So then something happened and I missed several days in a row. So I finally got my act together by day 19, where the theme was islands. So the region of France around Paris is called Ile-de-France. The theme for day 20 was movement, and somehow I got a weird idea of... So by day 21 I was getting a little tired. The theme was elevation, so I went back to an old idea of inverted elevation. The theme for day 22 was borders. I thought of the phrase drawing a line in the sand. I thought it would be easy to find the areas of the world that are covered with sand and just draw the borders there. So I guess I went missing again. So when day 27 rolled around, the theme was heat map. So on the left we have the classic game Dung Beetles. And on the right is a map of all the memory locations in the Apple II Plus. And It's sort of a heat map to show where all the bits that are set to 1 are located, and you can see it moving around. And on day 28, the theme was "The Earth is not flat." And by this time, I must have been getting tired because I just used someone else's tool to create this. They made this really cool tool where you can basically zoom to a location. It brings in OpenStreetMap buildings and roads and renders them on this little tiny globe. The theme for day 29 was null. This is a site called forebears.io, and it lets you map the distribution of various names around the world. And at last, the final day, 30, the theme was meta mapping. And so I ended up doing 22 maps this year, which was more than last year. Maybe next year I can get closer to 30. But I was not alone in my failure to create a map every single day of the month. There ended up being over 1,200 unique mappers who had created at least one map during the month. Collectively, everyone made over 9,000 maps for this year's challenge. And so here's a graph of how many maps were submitted for each day of the challenge. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot during the process. I spent more time than I thought I would. But I'm looking forward to doing it again next year, and I hope you'll join us.
Wow.
That was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you recorded that.
Yeah, it wouldn't have worked live. Too many scene, too many scene changes.
I will now. I might watch it again. If those of you, Keith is actually probably one of the most entertaining parts of Twitter for those of you that don't follow him. And I think the 30-day map challenge was like maybe the top of that. So that wow, thank you so much, man.
Well, it definitely took more than 10 minutes a day.
All right.